email. So here's an account that I haven't signed up yet. So we're going to go help@poolminers.com. That's my email. I'm going to put in my password. And then on this page, I'm just going to give SaneBox permission to read and send email on my behalf. We need to do this because obviously SaneBox needs access to your email. So I'm just going to click allow. SaneBox may then take a couple of minutes to just get everything ready. And once it's analyzed your email, you can click continue. Now on this page, I can enable different folders and features within SaneBox. Now, as it says here, your inbox, which you've already got your inbox set up, this is where SaneBox is going to keep your most important email. We can also enable features like the Sane Black Hole, Sane Receipts, Sane News, and Sane Later. Now, I would actually recommend turning on Sane Black Hole. This is a really useful feature where instead of moving emails to the trash, you can move them to the black hole, and that way, if that email sender ever sends you an email again, they will never reach your inbox. It's basically, as the name sounds, it's a black hole where any email in that black hole folder, the sender will never be able to contact you again. So it's a great way of dealing with spam. So yes, I'm going to turn this on. SaneBox is also suggesting I set up a Sane Receipts folder. This is quite useful because as I make payments, maybe I buy something online, instead of having those email receipts going to my main inbox and cluttering up my inbox, I can have them go straight to this Sane Receipts folder. So I'm going to add those emails later, but I'm going to turn this on. I can also enable this Sane News folder. And so this is where things like newsletters and kind of news-based emails can go. Again, SaneBox is just going to help make it so that my inbox isn't cluttered with all this news. Instead, it goes straight to the news folder, and then I can go through that news later on. So yes, we'll turn that on. And then I would highly, highly recommend turning on the Sane Later folder. When we turn this on, SaneBox is basically going to analyze my email, and it's going to put anything in the later folder which it feels is not important or that I don't really need to deal with immediately. So that's going to leave my inbox with only the really important things that I need to deal with now, and then once I've dealt with my inbox, I can then go to my Sane Later folder and deal with the messages that aren't quite as urgent or important. So I'm going to turn this on, and you can see a sample down below of the types of emails that SaneBox would be putting into this Sane Later folder, but don't worry if it doesn't look quite right, because we can train SaneBox to get smarter, and we can move emails around to teach it what we think is important. But for now, I'm just going to turn this on. So I've enabled those different features now. SaneBox is going to take a little while to get everything set up. It's going to create these folders in my Gmail account. Once I complete those onboarding steps, I'm going to arrive on my SaneBox dashboard. Now, this is just my online account. I'm in my browser here. I haven't downloaded anything. This is where I can customize and change the settings, my SaneBox settings, and it's where I can enable different features and folders that I want to take advantage of. Now, there's a lot of power under the hood and lots of different features that we can explore. I'll come back and I'll explain some of them in a little bit. But before I do that, let me just now take you over to my Gmail account. And so here's my Google account. And on the left-hand side, you can see SaneBox has set up some new folders, or in Gmail we call them labels, for those different services that I have enabled. So my inbox now is really clean. I've got a couple of messages in here that I need to go and deal with. Let's go to Sane Later. The Sane Later folder is now showing all the messages that aren't important or urgent. I still need to take a look at them at some point, but really my email best practice now is to focus on my inbox first. I'm going to clean out that inbox because that's my most important email. And then my Sane Later, this is just stuff that's not quite as important. I'll deal with that next. Now I'm just going to pause here and say that if all you use SaneBox for is this Sane Later folder, I think it's really going to help you, especially if you are someone that deals with a lot of email and you're currently drowning, because with that Sane Later folder enabled, now SaneBox is going to really cleverly sort your email for you. I don't know how it works, but I will say that it is very clever and intuitive how it analyzes what's important and what's not. And so if that's all you enable, and you just start working from your inbox first and then coming to the Sane Later folder later, that feature alone, I think, is one of the main selling points of SaneBox. Like I said, it's like having the assistant going into your email while you're asleep, while you're away from your computer, and that assistant just sorting your email for you. Here are the other folders or labels that SaneBox has set up for me. So I have this Sane News folder where any news-related content is going to be sorted, and my Sane Receipts folder. This is where email receipts for things that I've purchased, services I've paid for will come. And actually, there's an email here waiting for me that's going to teach me how I can actually use this folder. And this is where I can actually train SaneBox to get smarter. So if I do receive a receipt, maybe it goes into my Sane Later folder or even into my main inbox, I can simply move and drag that email to the receipts folder, and that's going to teach SaneBox to sort future emails like this into this particular folder. So that's what SaneBox looks like in my Gmail account. And as I said earlier, one of the great things about SaneBox is this service sits in between my provider, Gmail or Google in this case, and my email client. So if I go to Apple Mail, I'm using Apple Mail on the Mac and on my phone and iPad, you can see, so here is my main support inbox. I have a couple of email accounts in here, but here is my primary inbox for that Gmail account. And then if I go into the support section here, I can see those same labels or folders that SaneBox has set up. I've got the Sane Black Hole, the Sane Later, Sane News, Receipts, and so on. So basically everything that I'm seeing here in Gmail, I can also see in my Apple Mail account, and it will also appear on my iPhone and iPad. And I can train SaneBox here from Apple Mail as well. So let's say I receive an email and it's here in my main inbox. I can drag this to my Sane Later folder. I'm not actually going to do that now, but I can, and that's going to teach SaneBox that I don't consider this email to be important, and SaneBox is just going to get smarter at recognizing what I think is important and what can wait until later. Now, let me take you back to the SaneBox dashboard, and I just want to explain a couple of other key features that I find particularly useful in SaneBox. Now, I'm going to go to the folders area here, and on this page, I can customize and turn on different folders and features inside SaneBox. So you can see I've already enabled the Sane Later and Sane News. I can enable this Sane CC folder if I want to just see all emails I've been CC'd on. That way, stuff where I'm just kind of looped into the conversation, I can keep that stuff out of my main inbox and I can have that go to a separate folder. I can also create my own custom folders with my own custom rules, which I find quite nice. If I scroll down here, one of the features I particularly like is this reminders feature. If I click view here, I can go to the settings page for reminders, and I'm going to start by just turning this on. Now, what this lets me do is if I go back to my email and I click on a message, let's just pick one from my Sane Later folder. I'm gonna pick this one just as an example. Now, if I reply to this, I can reply to an address like tomorrow@sanebox.com. Now, when I send this email, I'm going to create a reminder where I'm going to have SaneBox is going to remind me about this email tomorrow by moving it back into my inbox. So I'll click send. Now, once I click send, a couple of things are going to happen. The first is that you will notice there'll be a new Sane Reminders folder here in this case in my Apple Mail sidebar, and this is because it's syncing the label. Here's the Sane Reminders label that was created in Gmail, and that is simply syncing to my Apple Mail account. And so here is where I can see a list of the reminders that I've created. So if I ever just want to go back and see what are all my email reminders, I can see those here. And I will also have received an email from SaneBox that explains what's going to happen. So tomorrow, in the case of that email, because I emailed tomorrow@sanebox.com, SaneBox is going to move that email back into my inbox and I'm going to get that reminder. This is a really useful feature if you ever want to just be reminded about an email to take action on it or just come back to it later. Or when you're composing an email, let's say you're emailing a customer or a client, you could BCC tomorrow@sanebox.com, and that way you're creating a reminder for yourself to follow up if you don't receive a response. You will also find in this email that SaneBox sends you an attached contact card for Google and Outlook. And you can save this to your contacts, and you can see in here there are all sorts of different frequencies and addresses that you can email. If you want to get an email, for example, at a certain time, you could email 10 a.m. at sanebox.com. You could also say in 2W for 2 weeks. You could also specify a particular date, like April 10th. And so saving this to your contacts just gives you access to all these different options you can use when creating those reminders. If I go back to my reminder settings in my SaneBox dashboard, I can see a list of my upcoming reminders, which I can always edit if I need to. And then the final feature I want to share with you is, at the time of recording this video, the new Email Deep Clean feature. What this lets you do is, SaneBox, if I click here to start my scan, it's going to scan my email and it's going to find all the email that it thinks I no longer need. So this is great if you're running out of storage for your email, or if you have lots of emails with big attachments and it's eating up a lot of storage space. SaneBox can scan your email and it's going to then help you to do a deep clean and remove those old emails that are old, or there's lots of big attachments and you no longer need them. So that is a little look at SaneBox. Now, as you may have seen on the dashboard before, there are loads of other features and there's lots of power under the hood that we can explore. But if you're just getting started, I would recommend setting up those few folders that I showed you, in particular the Sane Later folder. I've said it a few times, but it really does feel quite magical, like you've got a virtual assistant just sorting your email in the background, and that alone really is going to save you a lot of time.